All right, we are live. Bronson, are you ready to get nuts, brother?
I'm ready, man. Get nuts. It's awesome.
Let's do it. On today's episode of Playing Small is Canceled, we have a very exclusive treat. He's a powerhouse investor, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and the managing member of Bronson Equity. No big deal. He's also a general partner in over 2,500 multifamily units worth more than 250 million, and he's raised over 45 million in private capital. And he's on a mission to help others fire themselves by replacing active income with true passive cash flow, which I absolutely love. His best selling book, Fire Yourself, lays out the blueprint for escaping the rat race in 3 years or less. And he hosts the Mailbox Money Show, where he breaks down the investor mindset and unlocks real financial freedom for thousands. He's just a stud in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the brilliant, strategic, empowering, and abundant Bronson Hill. How you doing, Bronson?
I'm good, man. That was quite an intro. I appreciate it. You gotta be my hype man everywhere I go, man. I just gotta have that great voice you got and kind of speaking. But yeah, good to see you, man. I love you got Manhattan in the background. You're making things happen and living your best life.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And I feel about you. It's not the first time you and I connected. I was recently on your show and we had such a good time. There's a lot of alignment here. I know that our community is in for such a treat here today. So many places we could take this. Before we dive in, I have a little icebreaker for you. Are you ready for
Yeah,
me?
absolutely.
What does it mean for you to live an authentic life?
For me, I think it just really means showing up and being honest about who you are in your life. I think Brené Brown talks about owning your story. Just being able to say, "Hey, this is my story." For me, went through a divorce 7, 8 years ago. It was hard to own the story, being a single dad with a daughter and being divorced. And so once I really learned how to own that and just own it for different areas of my life, I think it just really it allows people to connect. Right, when you're authentic and you can actually be honest about your story and yourself, you just there's much less pretension and you actually can connect with somebody. If you're not authentic, you can't really connect with somebody.
What a great answer. It's funny because I was coaching somebody today, a high level person, and we're talking about this idea of like wanting to look cool or do things for the applause. And that is actually a cage.
Yeah.
And authenticity is the crown. And I love that you were just vulnerable and shared that you went through a divorce and stuff like that. I'm wondering if whenever you were going through stuff like that, did you feel any type of like, I don't know, guilt or shame? And that's something that you had to overcome. Was it hard for you to share that part of your story?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I grew up in a religious family. I was a youth pastor for a number of years, even in college. And so just the idea of being divorced is, am I okay? I'm okay with God. I'm okay with others. It was really hard. It was really hard to own that. And as I mentioned, Brené Brown, her work just talks about, this book, The Gifts of Imperfection, which are just really how do we show up and be who we are, and the idea of looking good, right, or being somebody who's just presenting themselves to others. I was in sales for years, and I knew how to get the sale, how to show up in a way that I could be likable and people could. And a lot of people have this kind of winning formula, right? But the challenge is, especially if you're good at sales or you're good at kind of like showing up and performing, sometimes you show up and you don't really bring your real self. You're not even connected to who you really are, right? And so then you wonder why, or I wondered why I was so empty. Is because I wasn't actually really showing up with who I was. So once I got in touch with that part of myself, it's like, oh, this is actually what I think, what I actually feel, what I actually want. I started to really come alive.
Beautiful, brother. I love it. Really come alive. It's funny because I can relate to that too. For a very long time, I lived an inauthentic life. When I reinvented myself in the pandemic and so forth, and started doing what I'm doing now, which is my calling, met my soulmate. When I finally had the courage to truly be myself, is when, as you put it so beautifully, I really became alive. And then the world started changing how it experienced me. And as a
Mm-hmm.
result, it became like a true authentic filter. The right people, the right relationships, the right opportunities began to align with the actual real version of me as opposed to maybe a facade.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think there's this trap that we try to, we spend so much of our life trying to, and I think it comes when we're kids, trying not to have people laugh at us or make fun of us or being good enough or being enough. And when we get to a place where we actually realize, there's this quote I heard, and I shared this with a friend of friends recently, is that, we're 20 years old, you care what everyone thinks about you. And when you're 40 years old, you don't care what anybody thinks about you. And when you're 60, you realize nobody was thinking about you at all, except in relation to like what you were thinking about them. And so like we get so caught up in this story, and it's 100% true. Like you said, the reason Elon Musk or these, larger than life people, like, the world responds to them a certain way and they do these amazing things because that's how they show up. They show up authentically in a way that's like, I want to do this, I want to see this, and they create that. And you've done that exceptionally well, Craig, as you've shown up in a way that's a powerful person. And so the world responds as you put these amazing rooms together with awesome, amazing people where they can meet, and they value for that because of the value you bring for that.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for saying that. Love that. I want to get to some of the stuff that you're so savvy at, brother. You're all over the map with the way that you think, and there's so much value and knowledge that you possess. I want to hit on a couple topics. Number one, this idea of inflation and how someone listening right now or catching the replay might be able to use inflation to their advantage.
Yeah, so inflation is tough, man. We're seeing it, every it costs across the board. They're saying it's only 3 to 5%, but yet you look at everything costs, twice what it cost when COVID started, right? Food, all the costs. I don't know how it is where you are, but it seems like everywhere prices are going up. So it's a pain, right? It's challenging, but there is a way that you actually could get excited about that. You actually could say, hey, there's a way I can actually use this to my advantage. So some examples of it, buying real estate, typically, will appreciate over time. And if you use debt to buy real estate, one example of this is if again, the math is not going to work, but just for the sake of the math, let's say a house was $100,000, which doesn't really exist in the U.S., but just for math's sake, you put $20,000 down, and the house appreciated because of inflation. It appreciated to 120,000, right? So your gains are not 20%; your gains are 100% because you only put 20,000 down and you have 40,000 in equity, right? So you're basically using debt to buy an asset that also produces cash flow, and you're able to increase your wealth over time. So that's one kind of simple strategy. The other one's involving other types of assets you can buy. There's things that, using debt or precious metals or other things like that. So I have a guide I'd love to give to your audience. By the time we're done, I'd love to share that with your audience for free.
Yeah, I love that. And so just the very idea of putting money in the bank is actually bleeding value every day. Is that right?
Yeah, so the idea is, savers or losers. Not that they don't have a bright outlook, or I want to shame them, but if you're just saving money, it may have worked years ago, but if inflation actually is, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10%, then every year you leave money in the bank, you're losing money every single year, every single day, every single month. And so the idea is, instead of just making money, a lot of people are really good at making money. Probably a lot of your listeners are really great at making money, but it's the idea of how do I have my money make money for me, right? How do I have something that, I go from cash to assets to cash flow, right? So I take my cash, I put it in assets such as a business, such as real estate, and then I get the cash flow. And typically there's an inflation hedge built into it. Rents over time, if you invest in an apartment building, or we have people that put a little bit to buy an apartment building, it typically goes hand in hand with inflation. So as inflation rises, rents rise as well over the long term. So these are things that a lot of people just don't realize, that you can actually, Warren Buffett talks about the idea of making money while you sleep, right? Unless you learn how to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. And so that's the premise of my book, Fire Yourself, is just, how do you learn that skill set to not just make money in your business, but make money while you sleep?
I love it. Couldn't agree more. The one thing I would ask or maybe challenge you with is what you're saying. It makes sense based upon inflation and so forth. And to sit on money and not do anything with it is a waste. But to have a little bit of liquidity for when those really crazy opportunities come, which they do probably a few times a year, and to be able to capitalize on that. For example, if you think about even a couple months back when Trump started introducing all these tariffs, right? If you had a lot of cash right there and then started dumping it in the market, in a little over a month, you made a killing. But you might not have had that opportunity if you were constantly utilizing the cash that you had. So I don't know. I just that just came through. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's good to have different strategies. I think it's definitely important if you have cash available, to be able to buy something. I also think too, I mean, it's funny when you start raising capital. Like, we have a business that we are in the process of buying. That it's not a large business, but it would have sold for about 2.5 times more. But the owner basically just kind of took his foot off the gas, said, "I don't want. If the more I grow this, the more work I have to do. I don't want to grow it." So we're really getting a steal on it. We're getting it for about 1 time's earnings of what we think it will produce in the first 12 months, right? So, but for that, I don't have just cash sitting around to buy it. So I have investors, I have friends, I have people I can tap into to be able to go get it. So sometimes, we're limited that it's not just having money to invest, but it's like, it's not I can't do that because I don't have the money. So, well, how can I do this? Is there a friend? Is there a family member? Is there someone around that we could partner and do this? So I think that it is, I mean, I tend to be more the guy who's like fully deployed all the time. Like I have like, $1 million, multi-million dollars of net worth, but like no cash, right? Because I'm just fully deployed. And so, but if there is an opportunity, it's like, okay, well, who can I talk to that does have money, right? So it's just kind of connecting those things. But everybody's different, has a different approach. I do think it is good to have some liquidity, but it's also like, well, if maybe you're tapped out, maybe you can partner with somebody else that does have liquidity.
Yeah, I love the consciousness right there that you just shared. So if you were fully deployed and something came onto the table that was really advantageous, instead of saying, "Oh, I can't afford this right now," well, how can I be resourceful? Who do I know? Who's in my network? Who do I have proximity to that might want to get involved? So
Yeah.
if you have that consciousness, there's always a way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, it's just seeing things differently, right? It's being able to see the opportunity. I had an opportunity come around. I've been telling myself I'm this 10x type person. I'm starting to act in a way that's 10x the net worth that I have. And I had this opportunity come around. It was about 10 months ago. And it was like, it was an incredible business opportunity, but I kind of wanted to pass on. I was like, it doesn't really fit our parameters, but it was about 5 times the size of our current business, right? So I said, but then finally I started to kind of, oh, well, maybe this actually could work. And I started looking at it. I said, well, this is actually a phenomenal deal. But I think I was able to see it because I'd been doing this work and preparing that this is the type of person, visualizing myself as Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich. He says, spend 30 minutes a day thinking about the person that you intend to become, right? So I was doing that. So this deal came around. And we ended up raising the money for it. It was going to about 5x our business. It did have to do with importing products from China, so we did not end up closing on the business. That was disappointing. But I look at it like a win because I was able to receive that and be able to say, hey, this is something I can do, rather than just simply passing on it. I think so often we pass on business opportunities, investments, other things because we don't think we're qualified, we don't have the experience, we don't have the money, but yet it's just simply that we haven't prepared ourselves to become that person.
So well said, brother. So well said. Who am I becoming? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. And even just asking those questions begins to increase your capacity on what's possible for you to receive. A couple times in this conversation, you mentioned like opportunities that come that you want to take advantage of. How can we be proactive with something like that? So, for example, where can one begin to find discounts, distressed deals, or maybe even opportunities for long-term cash flow? Like where can we be proactive in finding those opportunities?
Well, I think it's I call it it's networking, but it's not networking how people normally think of it, right? A lot of people think networking is like, I mean, they'd rather like sit home and watch a Netflix special than go to a networking event, right? But networking is, and it's not showing up in a room full of people you don't know and handing out business cards and shaking hands, right? You can do that, but that's not effective. And I know you run high level events too, so you probably coach people on this, right? So it's showing up, it's being present, looking people in the eye, giving a firm handshake, and just really listening. Okay, what is this person? Who is this person? What do they need? And immediately while you're talking to them, having this give first approach. So it's like, okay, I'm talking with you, creating a resume. Okay, as we're talking, I realized there's someone else in the room that as you said something, I was like, I need to introduce you to Tom over here because Tom does that exact thing that you're looking for, right? You need to meet Tom, right? And I walk you over to meet Tom, or I say, hey, I just finished this amazing book called The Reinvention Formula. You should read it. It'll absolutely change your life, right? So I think like making those connections right in that moment. And another example of this, I was actually on a cruise. It was an investor cruise. It was at the time expensive for me. I was making a good salary, but it was $6,000 or $7,000 for the week. The guy who wrote the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, was there on the boat, and there was a guy that was there. I'd started a little bit in real estate, but I was just kind of getting started. There's a guy there who I respected who did a lot of multifamily real estate investing, and there was a quote at one of the tables that said, "Make yourself valuable to valuable people." And I was thinking, like, well, who have I gotten value from? Well, I've gotten value from this guy who's here. So I approached him on the cruise, and I thought about how can I help? I said, well, maybe he helps people raise money for real estate deals. Like he helps teach people how to do that. But I wonder how it's going for him raising money. So I basically pitched him on, hey, could I help you? Is this something I could do? Or can I introduce you to somebody? Or could we do podcasts or create content around this? And literally from that one conversation, Craig, he got really excited about it. And we ended up forming a partnership and we raised $15 million together. I probably made $1 million off of that conversation, right? So this exists, being able to show up and being a person of value that adds value to valuable people.
I love that you're talking about this. It's like the rooms that we curate. It's like a contest. Who can give more? Everybody should. How can I support? How can I give? What is it that you need? What are you most jazzed about right now? And if everybody has that consciousness, everybody wins.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just, but again, it's a lot of times we think we have to be someone who's, how can I get what I want? But if you just simply put yourself in the role of being like serving other people, particularly people that have a lot going on, people that are, you know, they're doing big things. And if you can find a way, like to just really, and it's not just like showing up, say, hey, how can I help you? It's like already having thought about their business and understanding, asking questions, and then thinking like, well, what about this specific area? Is that something? And when I had this conversation where I made all this money off this conversation and we partnered together, I honestly wasn't thinking like, maybe I was just thinking like, hey, is there a way that I can help this person, right? Is there a way I can really help this person to grow and really in their business, because they're thinking about their business all the time. They're in that world all the time. But when someone comes around, especially almost like the higher level person that you find, the more of a service approach you should have as an individual. Because, for example, I hosted an event with Grant Cardone recently. We had a couple hundred people there, and like Grant, people come in all the time. Would you mentor me? Would you give me this? Whatever. But if you can show up, like I was thinking, how can I serve? Is there a way that I can serve Grant what he's doing? Right? Is there a way that I can help him in his goals? And if you do that, it completely sets you apart from everybody else, because you come with a totally different attitude. And it's very attractive to everybody, right? Everybody wants to be a part of somebody who's a giver. They want to be a part of that generous spirit. So I think just showing up in a way, reframing yourself of, hey, I'm here to give, I'm here to help, I'm here to support, and just you watch the doors open. It's unbelievable what can happen when you do that.
I couldn't agree more. It's special. And most people say they want to take. But what about what can I give? We just want to encourage people to just think about that, consider put that first. And then by doing that, you'll create win-wins. But it's so true. I see so many people for the sake of what? They're doing something to receive, or they're doing it to get this. And that just, it's a disconnection from going to the next level. It might be a short-term spark, but ultimately what you're explaining and sharing right now is the way to stay connected, where more and more doors open and opportunities present themselves.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, again, it's a lot of times there's so many opportunities and we just don't see them because we don't show up in a way that we're really able to receive them. And people, we put out a vibe, and we've all been around people that they're pushing. When I'm out there pushing my agenda, my cards, my deals, I need this, I need whatever. You can do that, but that's a different, like use that very sparingly, right? Like show up with a way that's, hey, how can I give? How can I help? And honestly, this is interesting with investment deals. When we most need to raise capital for a deal, we never go around and be like begging or calling people 3 or 4 times, but we just simply say, this is what it is, whatever. And then we just let it go. And if not, like, we just believe that the money's going to come in or it's not. But like, I never want to be in a place where I'm out begging for money or I'm out trying to make things happen. Right. Because that's a vibe you put out. Right. Versus, hey, we've got these things, we know they're going to work out. And we show up with a confidence that it will work. And people do. They come out of the woodwork and they want to join our deals, which is awesome. And it's the same with other things. Yeah.
It's a vibe. It's an energy that you're putting out.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how important is it for people to focus more on long-term plays as opposed to quick wins?
That's a good question. I think both are important. I think it's really important to have long-term. This is where I want to go. I just recently had an interview with Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who wrote "Who Not How: The Gap and the Gain," in a book called "10x is Easier Than 2x." And basically, he has the idea of like have these 10-year goals, but the problem is 10-year goals are not really real. Like it's not really tangible. So he said, can you make an impossible 10-year goal? I'd have these goals, in 10 years, I want to be doing this, but it's not, there's no plan to actually get there. So he said, take your 10-year goals. And if you were to do it as is a kind of a mental exercise, but if you were to try to get that done in 3 years, how would you do that? Right? Not even is it possible, but how would you do that in 3 years? And then he asked the question, okay, now if you had to do it, if you like to pay, you had to do it in 12 months, how would you do that? Or is it possible? How would you actually do that? And then you start thinking a very different way, right? Then these long-term goals kind of become like, oh, I've got to just do this, this, and this, right? Or I've got to do this one thing and that's all, right? Because if I'm going to become big in this certain area, or grow my wealth or do whatever the thing is. So for me, for example, I have a goal. I want to have a net worth of $100 million, right? And I was like, well, that's a nice 10-year goal. But it's like, well, how would I do it in 3 years? Well, I do it this way, whatever. And then I got to where if I were to do it in 12 months, the only way I could possibly see doing this in 12 months would be through business acquisitions, right? That's the only way I could possibly see either buying and selling businesses or buying multiples and selling them and going public, some variation of that, right? So, but the idea of having big goals is really important. But I think the sooner you can kind of move those forward and say, okay, I want to try to have impossible goals. I may not hit the impossible goal, but at least I'll be thinking in a way that will allow me to actually enter into a lot of that. Even if I don't, even if I get to 10% of my impossible goal, it's still way beyond where I get if I went for just some small short-term goal.
I love how you describe that. So let's say this is a long-term goal. How can we collapse time? Doesn't mean we're looking for instant gratification. We're just looking to consider how we can optimize the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times, again, we have big dreams, but dreams, they're not, if you don't have a specific kind of like that smart, measurable, achievable, relatable, smart goals, the timeline attached to it, they're just ideas. So I think every day I have things I write down. Hey, these are things I want to get done today. Here's the things that I'm working on. I do have my 1 year goals. I literally read them every single morning. I have usually 10 big goals. I'm going to read this many books. I'm going to take this many days vacation. I'm going to, raise this amount of money, or I'm going to, close these certain deals. I have those things I read every single day. And so I think it's important to keep things in front of you, but also to be open to opportunities as they come. So it's kind of this idea, like, I'm a person of faith. So I think, for me, I think money and spirituality go together. And I think it's great to like okay, I have these big, great goals, but God might have something else for me, right? So I've got to be open and flexible to kind of lay those plans down. And whether you believe in God or just universe, whatever you believe in, I think it's important to have big goals. But I also think it's like someone can be coming up to you and say, hey, I want to give you money, or I want to partner with you, whatever. And then you'd be willing to change your goals, be willing to change your plans. And I know you've had some big partnerships that have worked out really well for you. And I imagine those are things you couldn't have planned, that you were going to partner with Dave Metzler, right? You couldn't have planned that you were going to do these things. Like, they worked out serendipitously because you were open to those things and you created big goals and you were willing to adapt.
I don't think I could agree more. So I'm big into spirituality. My connection with Creator, it means everything. But it's like, do all that you can to prepare and be able to step aside and let the light in, meaning let the bigger plan unfold according. Don't be so attached to your goal where you're trying to control everything and you're not available for maybe a better opportunity, a divine opportunity.
Yeah. 'Cause I mean, some of the best things in my life is, they say that what is the harder I work, the luckier I get, or, when great opportunities are kind of when, like, preparation meets luck or something like that, where you kind of like look at people that have had next level success. I mean, one example is, I think I was reading a book and it was talking about, I think it was the book Outliers, I believe, but it was talking about Bill Gates, that he was like in the right place at the right time to be able to learn the skill of coding when there were like probably less than I mean, he had access to the University of Washington computer mainframe in like the 60s, which, like, there was only a couple of these in the world, and he would go in from like 2 to 5 a.m. and just play around on this thing as a teenager, right? So he had the ability to kind of be in there, and then as this stuff was developing, he just kind of went with it and grew, right? So sometimes the opportunities come, and somebody say, oh yeah, they were in the right place, right time. Well, they were also preparing themselves, and they were open, and they were available. And then this need and something opened up, and they were really able to step into that and really be like, oh wow, this opened up into something wonderful. And that's how those opportunities happen, is just being available, following passions, and having goals, but also being flexible with them.
Beautifully said, brother. I wanted to ask you about the book, the older one, and also the new one that's coming out. This idea of not waiting for the perfect time, but a chapter in my book that I always get messages that this one really stuck out to them it's called messy action. The idea is to give yourself permission to not be perfect and to just get out there. I know you talk about this idea about getting in the game and learning fast. Is that important for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea. I have this idea that I knew a lot of people that have a lot of great concepts. They're great strategic thinkers. They really are great strategists. And that's one group of people, but they don't take as much action, but they've got these great ideas. The other group doesn't really, they're not deep thinkers, but they simply just take action. Actually, not even some of them, I mean, they're that smart. They just take action. And then as they take action, they step back and they say, okay, did this work? And if it didn't work, then they make the change and then they keep adjusting, right? I think the person that takes the action over the person who has great theories will just have so much more success in life than the person who just simply stays with ideas and is analysis paralysis and is just simply kind of waiting on something to happen. So I have this saying that life has an action bias. If you want to bring a change to your life, you just got to take consistent action, and then not just take the action. I know people that take actions for years and things don't change, but you have to step back as well and just kind of see, well, am I getting the results I want? And then so it's that process of doing the work, stepping back. Is it actually working? And so, I once a quarter I get away for a couple nights and just reflect on that question. Is it working? Is it what I'm doing actually working? And if not, what do we need to change? So I think that the ideas are great, strategy is great, or strategery, as some would say, right? Using the ideas, but really having an action bias, getting in motion, and as you go, you'll figure it out and you'll keep adjusting until you get where you want to go.
I love it. And there's something to be said also about when you take action, not only do you figure things out faster or learn from mistakes, but spiritually speaking, you're showcasing a desire because you have the willingness to get out there. And I believe that will open up even more doors.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think what we get, when we start putting things out there, it does provide, like you said, an openness. You meet more people, you're open to new ideas. Yeah, the right doors open.
I love it. Your first book was a smashing success, Fire Yourself. For those listening right now, what the heck does it mean, fire yourself? What do you mean by that?
Thanks, man. Yeah, the subtitles replace your working income with passive income in 3 years or less. So I've had over 2,500 calls with high net worth investors, interviews, just kind of asking, because the average net worth was about 2 million. Some are much higher. And so just asking, what is it, what's important? And a lot of these people have done stocks, have done bonds. We're all kind of taught that you should have a money person, but there's so many misalignment of interests that are there. I used to be an investment advisor at one point. Now I call myself a recovering investment advisor. And so, I think that it's something where the things we're taught, often no one becomes wealthy by following traditional Wall Street methods. No one becomes wealthy. You can not lose your wealth that way. It's a great way to preserve potentially. But if you want to become wealthy, it's through other types of alternative assets, through investing, through businesses, or other things. And so this book just talks about well, how do I get started? Which questions should I ask? Why is what I'm doing not working right now? Why can't I just retire with the way that I'm doing it now? And so it just brings up some real kind of pain points for a lot of people that are like, so with so much volatility in the stock market, the returns are 6 to 9% per year. But if you have a financial advisor, if you're involved in mutual funds at all, you're typically, and I could break this down, but the fees, the hidden fees, are typically over 5% per year. You have 1.2% for the actual mutual fund. These range dated funds typically say 1.2%. Then they have hidden fees, which is crazy. Legally, they don't have to disclose. They're charging you fees. And so Tony Robbins had a book that said actually the average fees are around 3.2%. So they'll disclose 1.2, but it's actually 3.2% per year. Plus your financial advisor takes 2% per year on top of that. So you're at 5.2% when the total returns for the stock market indexes are 6 to 9% per year. So that's most of your money. It becomes a glorified savings account, right? So nobody's becoming wealthy by having a financial advisor. There's really no way to really do that. Now, again, I have a lot to say about that, but alternative assets, we call them real assets, things like real estate, buying businesses, precious metals, other things. Those are much better ways to store and grow wealth than traditional Wall Street methods.
Beautifully said. Kind of a big question, but you're connected to this industry. What do you love about real estate most?
Honestly, I would say with real estate, I don't love real estate. I think I love what real estate does for me. I love that I can own an asset. And this is, other assets as well. This is businesses, this is oil and gas, this is other types of projects that I can own something that I can go from cash to asset to cash flow, right? So I can basically, as Warren Buffett would say, have that, making money while I sleep, right? So that I don't have to actually be there to be able to run something. I can be passive. And it allows me to live the life I want. Last year, I quit my corporate job about 4 years ago. Was making good money, over 200K a year. It was the golden handcuffs that was too good to leave, and so I just decided I'm going to leave. I started had this other business that I was doing, and then last year I've been able to develop this business to where I've traveled 6 times internationally in 2024. Right, I went to one of the highlights was going to the base camp of Mount Everest, right, and having that little mountaintop experience, right. So I think with financial freedom, it really allows you to have time freedom where you can create the life you want. You can write the book you want. You can travel. You can spend the time with family. Or if God forbid something happens to you physically or a family member, you'd be there. Or you'd be able to kind of take care of yourself and others, which I think is a real thing that people don't really think about.
Yeah, love it. I love the honesty too. Not necessarily the most passionate thing, but you love what it provides for you.
Yeah.
And also kudos to you for leaving a job that was good to lean into unpredictability with the possibility to create even greater, and not surprised to see you doing your thing. And something tells me you're just getting warmed up.
Thanks, man. I'm just getting warmed up. You too, man. I'm excited to see what you're creating and what you're going to create in the future.
Thank you, brother. Last thing before we land the plane, your new book, I don't think it's a secret. Maybe it is, but I know that it's in process. Are you able to share the name?
Yeah, it's called Rich Brain, How the Wealthy Change Their Brain to Change Their Bank Account. So this comes from all these interviews of, a lot of people think that you either have money or you don't. You're one of the haves, so you're a trust fund person or you're not. But the facts are, and that's actually the media, that our media, and everybody kind of presents that it's like, there's this class warfare, but it's just not true. 86% of
Did we freeze?
So anyway, these are learnable, teachable things that anybody can pick up on. So the book just talks about what are the mindsets that wealthy people use, and what are the things that you can use to stop self-sabotaging yourself and actually get into a place where you attract wealth much easier.
I love it. Sometimes people think that prosperity and money is like something you're born with. No, it's a skill that could be developed. You could model someone that's rich. It's a muscle that can be flexed.
Yeah, 100%.
I know our community is going to want to go deeper. Where's the best place for all of them to stay involved in your movie and catch up on what you have going on?
So I have this free gift for your audience here. We were talking about how to use inflation to your advantage. I've got this 30-page guide that talks about just some of the different ways to get involved in real estate, using debt to buy assets, precious metals, borrowing, things like that. So this is the ebook here, is how to use inflation to your advantage. And if you text the word inflation to the number 33777, so if you text the word inflation to 33777, we'll send that to you for free. It'll ask for your email and your name, and then you'll get on our list, and we'll let you know about upcoming deals, some of these exciting opportunities we have going on. That's the best way to be able to connect.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that gift, brother.
No
Real
problem,
quick, before we hop off, a little rapid fire, maybe 1 or 2 word answers. Are you ready for me?
I was born ready, man.
Favorite movie?
I would say Nacho Libre, man. I try to watch that movie every 6 months for my soul, man. It's just such a silly, fun movie.
Is that with Jack Black?
Yeah, that's the Jack Black. Super ridiculous.
I never seen it, but I love wrestling. Maybe I should.
Oh, yeah, I think you should. You would laugh pretty hard. Watch it with somebody you want to get a good laugh with, and you'll have a good time.
Okay, awesome. Your favorite book, or maybe one that's made a big impact on you?
I'll share 2. I shared Brené Brown, her book, The Gifts of Imperfection. That's an incredible book. Amazing, the link between personal development and business and financial growth. So that's a book that really changed my life. The second one is a book by Chris Voss, who's an international FBI hostage negotiator. Got to have lunch with him. It's called Never Split the Difference. And that's an amazing book about negotiation in everyday life.
Classic. Chris is a friend. He's been on the shows a couple times.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, he's great.
Okay. Favorite workout?
Favorite workout. I'm doing a half marathon this weekend. I love running.
You did one last week.
What's that? You did one last week?
Yeah, I did the Brooklyn half, but
awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm doing a trail run in Griffith Park here, so that'll be fun. I love running. I love HIIT workouts. I love weights. I love a lot of it. I do Spartan races. I think Spartans DECA, High Rocks, those are kind of the hybrid ones I like a lot because they're running and there's some weight stuff involved as well.
So cool. You're badass. Do you have a goal for the half, or just want to have some fun?
This one, I just got hip knee surgery a couple months ago, so I'm hoping just to kind of like be able to not get injured and have a good time and do my best. So I've run a couple half marathons and Spartans, but not like on a trail run. So we'll just, do my best and have fun and see how it goes.
Sometimes that's the best vibe, when there's not really an expectation. You just want to go out and give it your all and have some fun and stay healthy.
Exactly.
Okay. Last but not least, your favorite morning ritual essential?
Well, lately I've been doing this, it's the Tony Robbins priming video, which is basically you get in touch with 3 moments of your life that you're just truly grateful for, and you relive them as if you're there. And it's just amazing when I do that in the morning. It just puts me in touch with like this place of gratitude. I just start with, no matter what is going to happen during the day, whatever's coming, I can just be so grateful, like for the moment my daughter was born, or for the moment I finished that race and this is what happened, or we closed on this business deal, or whatever the thing is, right? It's so great to be able to experience that again, and just to start with that at the beginning of the day.
Beautiful, brother. Love it. Love you. Love connecting with you. So pumped for everything that you have going on. Want to do so many more things, and our community is going to love it too. Thank you so much for stopping by today and dropping these priceless, juicy nuggets.
Thanks, Craig. Really appreciate what you're creating. Love how you're putting yourself out there for people, and just love the communities that you're building. So let's see what more we can do together. I really appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Hang on for 1 sec, Bronson.